Hey everybody, this is Julianna with Watchmen Action coming to you live with Miss Amania at Chomping It Up.
That's right. I'm here with the conservative poet and happy to be here with you, Juliana, on another Friday, a
Yeah,
beautiful Friday. So it is good to be here with you.
oh, awesome. So we have a wonderful, amazing special guest. And the reason why I love Dr. Z so much, and we interviewed him once before, right before he actually moved to Orlando. But he really is, fighting for the kids, and making sure that we're not grooming them and we're not changing them and we're keeping them the way that father says that they should be. So he's a real advocate for the children, and I just absolutely love him. So I'd like to introduce to the stage Dr. Z. Dr. Z, how
Hello,
are
Dr.
you?
Z.
Hello, Juliana. Hi, Amania. How are you guys doing?
We're fantastic.
Fantastic. I love your word. Fantastic. Fantastic. As Juliana Ormond will say.
I just love it. So, um, you know what? I'm going to need to get RC to stop the dinging over here. So, Dr. Z, you have a great history that you talk about how you were in the medical field and you started hearing eventually about this transgender stuff that was going on with children. But you had said to me once upon a time that you didn't even know what was going on, that it was kind of secret and was happening in the hospitals. And all of a sudden, when you caught wind of it, you were like, what the heck is going on? So I would like for you to talk about how not even you as a doctor knew about what was going on. So tell us your background.
Yeah, so as it pertains to that, I think that this kind of caught a lot of people by surprise. In med school, you learn about transvestism, transgenderism, gender dysphoria, all of those things. It's obviously something you just kind of glance at for 2 seconds in one of your psych studies or something like that. You memorize what you need to memorize for it and move on. It's generally considered quite rare. I think when I looked it up prior to becoming a physician, it was like 0.01%. Of people or something suffer from like a gender related issue or something like that. So it's just something really fringe and really rare. You maybe might see one of those individuals in your lifetime based on what you learn about it. So I never, when I actually learned about it, I had to go back in my notes to actually see that I'd ever actually even addressed it in my med school days. But it is there. So anyways, when I got into medicine, that wasn't really on my mind in any way, shape, or form. I started practice in 2020 in residency in Brooklyn, New York. So I walked into the COVID nightmare. So there's, and we can discuss that as well. But my mind was on other things. But in more liberal cities, the LGBTQ thing was obviously pretty rampant. Several physicians in my residency class were part of the LGBTQ and things like that. But I was never terribly engaged in it and didn't pay too much attention to it. What people do in their personal free time was not really my concern in the professional space that I was in. And I was fighting COVID for quite some time, and I wasn't paying terribly close attention to some of these more social situations. And I wound up coming across an article, I believe it was by the Epic Times. And I don't have a subscription or anything. I just, came across and scrolling on this. And it was Chloe Cole's story, who was a teenager in, I believe, Southern California. And the story was that was diagnosed with gender dysphoria at 12 years old, and she was put on puberty blockers and then cross-sex hormones. And then by 15, they had performed a double mastectomy on this young girl. And when I read this story at that time, she was like going before Congress and having discussions about this, and people were saying it was a conspiracy and all sorts of crazy stuff. So, I mean, I was really just appalled, because I didn't know if this was like reputable or legitimate. So I did my due diligence and just looked into it, and I found that yes, this is actually true. And I actually had reached out to Chloe Cole herself and spoke to her to find out if this was true. And I was really deeply shocked, at the idea that like somebody is, being convinced that they're born in the wrong body. Somebody's being convinced at 12 years old to go on, puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. I can go into great detail about why these things are wildly problematic, but I just my initial take on it was this is incredibly dangerous, and this is medical malpractice and negligence, and somebody needs to be buried for this. People need to lose their licenses. People need to go to jail, and that was my initial reaction. And then I found, and then later they did a double mastectomy on her, and I had never heard of anything like that. That somebody would do a cosmetic surgery on a female of that age for this kind of purpose. I mean, I don't even agree personally. I don't agree with cosmetic surgery on any minor, whether it's a nose job or something like that. I just don't agree with it. I think that's foolish. But this removing the breasts of a teenage girl because she was convinced that she was born in the wrong body. I can't impress upon you enough how like shocked I was that this even happened one time. And so I took this to my residency program, and I had posted it in one of our doctors' chats, and I immediately was met with this intense blowback. This is not reputable. This is you're being a bigot. So forth and so on. And I was shocked again. I was like, wait a minute. I just posted a story about a 12-year-old girl who was placed on dangerous drugs and then was surgically mutilated by doctors that are committing medical malpractice. And your response to me is, number one, that this isn't happening. And then number two, that even if it is happening, this is necessary. And even if that, and it just, I will go into this later, but it's always the same sequence of events that I would come to find about how this goes. And I guess I'll just break it down now. First, it's not happening. And then it's happening, but it's only in adults. And then, okay, it is happening, and it's happening in adults, but it's really rare. And then it's not so rare. And then it's also happening in children. But it's really rare in children. And then, but it's not. But if it's absolutely necessary in children, and then it's okay, it's not necessary, it's harmful, it's happening in children, but you're a bigot. It's always the same sequence of events of just lie after lie after lie that you have to uncover. But I went through that with the doctors in my group. And then, come to find out that the doctors are using pronouns and, starting to use pronouns in their email signatures. And it was just, I was actually called into the office by my program director of pediatrics to discuss all of these things about how I'm a misogynistic bigot and transphobe and so forth and so on. And his direct words to me were that girl got what she asked for. And anyways, she's just an activist. Again, I want to impress upon you that this is the director of a pediatric medical program stating that a 15-year-old girl who was surgically mutilated got what she asked for. And also, who cares? She's just a transphobe. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So, I mean, it was like one of the most, and I mean this literally, I've seen a lot of things in my life. I've had a very interesting experience in my 40 years on this planet, but I have never been so jarred in my entire life as I was in that moment. Like I literally realized I was surrounded by a bunch of psychopaths and child butchers. I mean, and that's not being hyperbolic. Psychopaths and child butchers have taken over medicine.
So
and
my
I'll
daughter,
pause there. I've been talking for a while.
I was going to say, so my daughter came home 11 years ago. She was 14 years old, and she brought a little friend in. Her friend was 14, and she said to me, I'm non-binary. And I was like, you're what? Because I didn't understand the word non-binary. She says non-binary. I'm like, what does that mean? She goes, I don't self-identify as a girl or boy. And I thought, they are like programming you guys, are making this, they're normalizing it, because once upon a time there was like virtually no child that was self-identifying as trans, and now I think it's like 23% of the children are like talking about being trans or
Yeah, it depends on what subset of group you look at and where they're at in the United States. Certain places are different. What age range you're looking at, but yes, in some groups of adolescents, up to a quarter of the population is now identifying as LGBTQ. And again, that's not across the board in the U.S., but in some different subsets in some different places, yes, it's profoundly high. And just, once again, this was like first and foremost, gender dysphoria, the way that it's talked about in the DSM, right? It has to be persistent for a period of greater than 6 months in time. It has to be that the patient is not their biological gender is not aligned with their psychological understanding of their biological makeup, and this has to cause them profound distress in their life. So that's the way that this is generally diagnosed, and it can't be better diagnosed by something else: PTSD, trauma, depression, anxiety, delusional disorder, body dysmorphic disorder, bodily integrity disorder. There's like 50 other things, so it can't be explained better by those things. What I'll say is this: that's why it used to be so rare, because there's many other explanations for why something like this would happen. And again, it has to meet the criteria of significant stress and profound distress in the human experience, which obviously you can see a lot nowadays. It's become trendy and fashionable, and people are on the internet screaming about how they're trans and how wonderful it is. That's not distress. That's not a disorder that you're struggling with in your life. So the lines have been very, very blurred. Now, in the last couple years, in particular, I think up to 42,000 children in 2021 were treated for gender dysphoria. So that's a profoundly high number, right? 40 some thousand children, and that was 2021. So now the numbers, I don't have them in particular, but that's way higher. About 5,000 children, adolescents have been placed on puberty blockers in the last couple of years. Around 10,000 have received hormone therapies. At least 5,000 have received surgeries. And these are all children. And again, these are underappreciated numbers, and these are several years old. And as we know, this trend has just really exploded in the last couple of years. So it's not really it's not like a fringe thing anymore. This is happening. This is happening everywhere.
So we've got the medical industry against the kids. We've got the educational industry against the kids. We even have the political industry against the kids. And I say political because they don't want to talk about the word grooming. Yes. Okay. Everything you talked about, Dr. Z, as far as I'm concerned, that's all child abuse. Would you not say?
I would say. And I would also say, with social media being the way it is now in our society, the children are seeing these things online and they are gravitating to it, and they're looking up this and they're looking up that, and they're saying, oh, I think I might be this, or I think I might be that. And next thing you know, they're down this rabbit hole, and they're coming out, like this girl getting, puberty blockers, getting their parts cut off. So what do you think about social media and how we need to look at that when it comes to this crisis that we're seeing? 40,000 children in 1 year. I mean, the numbers are crazy how it's increasing so much.
Yep.
Yeah, look, I think social media, I would have not said this, many, many years ago, but social media has become such a staggering problem in our society. I mean, most children nowadays are doing like 12 hours of screen time a day, something like that, which, is really high. And there's no parental controls on the internet anymore. And they sneak all of this stuff into everything. All of the, like the transgender stuff it's in all the cartoons, it's in all the TV shows, it's in all the movies. I mean, it is quite literally everywhere. I want to touch on what you said about the grooming and everything. It's a war on children, and that's not being hyperbolic in any way, shape, or form. This really is a war on children. The most danger, and we could start at the very beginning. I'm kind of I like to look at everything, and starting at the beginning is usually the best place. So let's start. The most dangerous place for a child to be in the United States of America is in the mother's womb. Okay,
Yeah,
that's the most
I
dangerous place
agree.
that a child can be.
Mhm.
We've had over 63 million abortions since 1975. We have over 1 million abortions per year in the United States, around 70 million abortions per year in the world.
Right here in Florida too.
And we're one of the leading places, right? So a million babies are aborted every single year. So that's the first thing. Then after a baby's born, they have to survive a 72 dose vaccine schedule, around 30 some vaccines by the time they're 3 years old. So they have to survive being injected with poisons and toxins, every couple of months, which has a profound impact. I won't go into the chronic illness crisis that we're in our youth, but that's a problem. Then you get into things like this, the transgender stuff. Harvard has coursework on how to diagnose transgender babies in the womb. That's what we've gotten to. They're trying to diagnose babies in the womb as transgender. Now, then we move on from there. And they have to, recently a 3-year-old child was thrown out of his daycare for being transphobic, right? Because he didn't use the right pronouns. We're talking about a 3-year-old, right? So they have to survive this assault, and the childhood indoctrination in school. Then by the time they hit pubescence, if they're nervous about puberty or they're going through the social turmoil that we all know as puberty, then if they feel confused in any way, shape, or form, they're going to be told by a doctor that you are likely transgender and that you need to be placed on puberty blockers. Now, puberty blockers are the same drugs that they use to castrate sex offenders. It's Lupron, gonadotropin, hormone agonists, right? Now, during the time of development of a child going through puberty, it's not just the physical body. It's not just breast development or body hair or menstrual cycle or something like that. It's also neurocognition. It's all emotional ability. It's also maturity. It's also bone structure, muscle mass. There's so many things that are going on that you have to take into account. Now, when you block these things at a natural time when the body is supposed to be going through those things, we have no idea. Number one, it's just foolish, right? Number one, it's a bad idea no matter what. But we have no idea what the impacts are down the line. Like you completely disrupted your neurocognition, and you completely disrupted the limbic system, and you completely disrupted your neurology, and then your physiology, your muscles, your bones, your growth patterns. You disrupt so much, and there's no telling what that's actually going to cause in the future. But we do know that it causes musculoskeletal damage, and we do know that it can cause neurological damage, and we do know that it can cause psychosis and aggression and all sorts of other problems. And these are known issues, and not to mention the things that we don't know. So you take a child and you do that to them based on the fact that they're quote unquote born in the wrong body, which is nonsense, obviously. And then after that, you take them and you put them on the replacement hormones of the opposite gender. So not only do you shut off all the body's natural mechanisms, then you try to force the body into the most unnatural mechanisms that it doesn't understand. And this is for the purpose of sexualizing the body towards the other gender, because it's all about growing the body towards the opposite gender. Now, we know that, let's say if you put an adult on 10 times the amount of testosterone that they're supposed to be on, we all know the problems that come with that. You have increases in cancer, you have aggression, you have psychosis, you have neural disruption, you have significant alterations in the musculoskeletal system. You have all sorts of other problems. Now, imagine putting a 12-year-old child, a 10-year-old girl on cross-sex hormones. It's, again, so we can walk down all the problems that are known about this. It's insane. And then finally, what is the end goal of this assembly line? The end goal is to transition surgically, right? So cut off their breasts, remove their penis or testicles, invert their vagina, and these surgeries, calling them Frankenstein surgery does not do it justice. These surgeries are wild butchery. It is, I can't explain it. It's Jeffrey Dahmer meets Joseph Mengele. Sorry about that. It's Jeffrey Dahmer meets Joseph Mengele style stuff. And they're just experimenting. Like, they have no idea what they're doing. If you were to sit down just as a thought experiment, as a scientist and a doctor, and said, how could I build a penis from the pieces and parts that you have on, it's not doable, right? So what I'm saying is, even if this were a thought experiment, it's not doable in any way, shape, or form. They're just taking a bunch of body tissue, throwing it together. If you saw the complications of these surgeries, it's profound. The body is designed to heal. So when you damage it and start to destroy it, it wants to heal. So when you try to create a penis out of skin from the thigh, and you try to use synthetic tubes for the vaginoplasty, they use tissue from the colon and from the stomach to line a hole that they cut into the body. I mean, these things are the insanity of it is it's something to behold. So anyways, you run into all of these problems. These children are never going to heal. They're never going to be okay. You've removed their ability to procreate, which is part of the issue, which is part of the reason that they do this. You remove their ability to essentially have a relationship in the future in any meaningful type of way. And then after you get through all of this, then, if that child makes it to the age of 18, bravo. So I'd say that's my breakdown on the war on children and what's happening now.
What are you doing to talk to the other doctors and bring some sanity to what's going on in your community? Because, you're not the only one. Unfortunately, though, you guys seem to be the minority. Is that correct?
The drastic minority. Several years ago, when I started talking about this, I was told by every doctor on both sides to shut up. Especially, and you do have to draw in that COVID was happening. And I'm also heavily involved in COVID. COVID was happening. So, I mean, it was hard enough not to get silenced, slandered, not to get sued, have your license restricted. It was hard enough just with COVID. So when I was also bringing these things up, people were just like, dude, shut up. Like, we have bigger problems right now. I didn't really understand that. We don't have bigger problems. COVID is mass genocide, and that's a different topic. But the mutilation of children, we're talking about a profound evil that I can't explain. People were duped by COVID. You could convince people that vaccine was good. You could convince people that this is going to help, and with the fear that was spread forward. I have some mercy and some empathy. And I can at least understand that. I cannot understand trying to mutilate children. You go into an operating theater and carve up a kid. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense. So yes, but anyways, we the drastic minority. Now it's gotten a lot better in the last several years. People are starting to turn around, but there needs to be total accountability here. And that's, one thing. I wrote a new bill in the state of Minnesota that was recently introduced, HF 3151, which is also known as the Zywiec Act, is going to retrospectively hold physicians, nurses, any healthcare professional accountable for being involved in this type of care. Because you don't need an education to know not to do this. You don't need you don't need to be a doctor. You don't need to be. So it can't be held just to the physicians. Everybody knew what they were doing was wrong. Everybody knew what they were doing was profoundly evil. And you don't need, once again, you don't need to be taught these kinds of things. So in order to do that, I used retroactive laws. I use laws that are already on the books: criminal negligence, misconduct, coercion, battery, a couple other laws that are already on the books that will hold all of these individuals to account for that. And then prospectively wrote new laws specific to gender affirming care, where it makes it completely illegal across the board. It doesn't matter if you're even affirming somebody's gender. Illegal. No, you're not affirming somebody's delusion. You are just going to make them worse, and especially if it's a child. In healthcare, we've totally lost sight of integrity and ethics. You do not lie to patients. You don't tell a schizophrenic patient that they really are a dragon. You don't tell an anorexic patient that they really are overweight and that they need to diet. You don't tell patients you have to have uncomfortable conversations, and that's part of the problem that we've seen now. It's
Yeah.
just like parents want to be friends with their children, and therefore they're no longer parents. Doctors want to be best buddies with their patients instead of actually treating them for their healthcare conditions. So it will prospectively make these things illegal, and not just civilly liable, but these are criminal charges. So up to a $500,000 fine in some cases, and per violation, and up to 10 years in prison for prospective laws per violation, up to 20 years in prison for some of the laws that are retrospective. And I honestly think that that's being merciful. I think that if you mutilate a child under the guise of trying to help them, especially given your position of power, authority, and responsibility, I think that the punishment should be even worse. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. With greater responsibility, comes greater punishments if you subvert those responsibilities. So I think that life in prison is actually what should be sought. But I think the mercy is giving them 10 years per violation.
Let me ask you, Dr. Z, is this legislation that you're working on, the Dr. Z Act?
Yeah.
Is that just is it Minnesota, or is that going to be across the United States?
Well, I'm going to try and pull this across the entire United States. It's already gaining a lot of support, as you can see now that this is blown wide open. Many people are eager to get on the right side of history, because once again, this is not something that's arguable. History is going to look back on this as the greatest human rights violation that was ever perpetrated by the medical industrial complex. And that's saying something.
Yeah.
We have the Nazi experiments, we have Tuskegee, we have the Stanley experiments, we have the Stanford prison experiment. We have a lot of bad things in medical history. This will go down as the absolute worst atrocity to ever happen. And I mean that, higher than Nazi eugenics. This is going to be the worst thing that's ever been seen. Now, like I said, a lot of people are very eager to get on the right side of all of this. So it is generating a lot of support. And we will be pushing this as a template for other states. All they have to do is utilize their existing codes and laws, transfer them from the Minnesota laws to whatever corresponding laws that they have. And I wrote the language. I think that the language is sophisticated enough that it won't be able to be challenged in any meaningful way. And that it won't also prohibit people from actually getting necessary care in other aspects. So it's not shutting down like other areas of healthcare where it may be needed.
I want to just real quick. So on that topic, so I started following you on X, Dr. Z, and you have a tweet that's
I'm sorry that you have to see the dumpster fire that is my Twitter account, but
well, I am seeing it, and it's brilliant because your voice is really needed in this field. And you said about this, you said, let me explain this. Let me explain how this is going to go. Gender affirming care is going to go down as the greatest travesty and miscarriage of medical ethics in the history of humanity. This is worse than the Nazis. Enjoy the side you're on, because at this point, you're staying there. And that is talking to the doctors, your colleagues, right, in reference to them not standing up and doing what's right. First, do no harm, not doing harm, and not standing up and saying we have to come together and fix this. So I thought this tweet was really, really an interesting point that you brought up. But
well, silence is complicit, right?
That's
like
right.
you look, this is important. There is the fact that so many doctors, we have 1.1 million physicians in the United States workforce. 1.1 million physicians. Only one doctor in the United States of America filed lawsuits against this to try and stop it. 1 out of 1.1 million. Now, why is that? I'm not tooting my horn or something. Why didn't all the doctors do something to stop this? It didn't even have to be a lawsuit. It could be talking to your staff. It could be speaking out on social media. You will notice that, go back just 2 years ago, silence, radio silence. So, and doctors have had enough time, more than enough time, to wake up to what's happening. This is on every major platform. It's in the news. It's in Congress. They're passing laws. 26 states have now banned it. There is no reason for the silence. So that's what I said. At this point, enjoy the side you're on. You're not changing. And the beautiful thing about this is I've been in this space for several years. I've been paying very close attention to who has not been speaking and who has been speaking, who has been willing to help and who has not been willing to help. And the majority of the doctors are on the wrong side of this and have been on the wrong side of this. And I'm not saying that they agree with it or that they thought it was a good idea, but they stood silent as physicians. And it's completely unacceptable. After COVID and transgender care, the vast majority of physicians in the United States of America deserve to lose their licenses, and many of them deserve to be put in prison. And I know what that sounds like. How do you de-license 1 million physicians and put a large proportion of them in a cell? You build more jails. That's the start. You start by building more jails. You start by hiring more attorneys. You start by actually doing it. This isn't something that can be swept under the rug. It simply can't. And that's why I believe the bill that I wrote is the first one to use existing laws so that we can go back and penalize people who did this. We're not just drawing a line and saying, oh, now it's illegal. The foolishness of those laws, and I'm not trying to point a finger at anybody who's trying to do good. I'm saying that it's foolish to just go prospectively on this, because what do you mean now it's illegal to mutilate children? What do you mean now it's illegal to convince children that they're born in the wrong body so that you can put them on dangerous drugs to make money? Now it's illegal? No. That was illegal before we wrote any new legislature. That was illegal prior to this. And any doctor that did that doesn't deserve to just, get, now you can't do that anymore. No, you belong in a cell.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think the population, a lot of us, obviously, at least half, allowed the COVID thing and bought into it, and then allowed the transgender thing with the children and bought into it, and the whole industry, the whole medical industry buying into it, a lot of the educational industry buying into it, the politicians are buying into it? Like, why? Because it sounds so crazy to me. Like, this is like what happened to our culture that we're trying to normalize this type of, why?
That's such we could talk about that probably for hours on end. Like how did we arrive at this place? And I think but this has been happening for a very long time. The medical system in the United States, this Rockefeller medicine, the industrial pharmaceutical complex, it's not a conspiracy. Look, these people generate revenue off of, disease creation and illness perpetuation for profit. And that's how it's always been. That's what this has been from its inception. So it's not shocking that it's gotten to this place, but it is shocking that people weren't willing to stand up and try and fight against it. Now, doctors, the medical profession at large, number one, they're indoctrinated in school. There's no better way to say it. They really are. Number two, medicine attracts more now than ever the wrong personalities. I'll say that. Not just dark personalities, but just the wrong personalities. Doctors are made out to be gods. They walk on water. They make a large amount of money. They are idolized in our culture, and they're never wrong, and so forth and so on. So you take people that want a bunch of money, they want to be idolized, and they want to be in positions of authority. It's no different than the government. It attracts the worst kinds of people. The best leaders are people that don't want to lead. That's just the bottom line. That's how we see things. Or how we see things play out. The best leaders, that are positioned best, internally to be leaders, often don't want to lead. The people who, I think there's an old quote. The people who seek power and obtain power are more often than not the worst people to wield it. So. Like I said, we could go into the philosophical debates on how we got here, but a lot of what's going on with the COVID vaccine and transgender medicine, people have lost all their roots in faith. People have lost all their roots in God. At the end of the day, I will draw everything back to this one singular point. People lost God. And that is the fundamental nucleus of where we're at. But we could talk about the attack on children. We can talk about the attack on the nuclear family. We could talk about the government corruption and tyranny. We finally are sitting in a position where a global world order actually has the technological and military infrastructure and global coordination to actually pull off what they've wanted to do. Every single empire since the beginning of time has wanted to do what? Expand their power and take over the world. It's as simple as it is. Now we finally do have coordination across. I mean, look what happened with COVID. All Western nations, Ireland, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, the United States, Canada. It's all Western nations, right? In lockstep during COVID, carried out the same tyrannical patterns. This was totalitarian control, seeing what they could do, and they got pretty far.
That touches every aspect of everything that we're doing. Like, it doesn't matter what facet that we're looking at, even in the churches at this point. You know, the negative is infiltrated. And I think we're at the point where the people are standing up and going, stop. We want to change this lunacy. We didn't agree to all of this that's now happening. And we're trying to figure out, like, how do we turn the tide? Because, you know, we've got big industries, you know, these are crimes against humanity as far as I'm concerned. Everything that you're talking about, when you're talking about chemically castrating a little boy, I'm sorry. That's just disgusting. I can't imagine anybody going, you know what? The most pleasurable thing that Father gave us to do, which was sex, you're going to take it away from him? Yeah. Yes. What is wrong with people?
Yeah. And that's when I was talking about this several years ago, I don't beat around the bush with these topics. I don't pull my punches. Look, when I was talking about the surgical procedures, people are like, oh God, you can't talk about it. That's how disgusted you are with me just bringing it up. Now this is happening to kids. I want you to think for a second. Every single child, thousands of them that have been, at least I believe the statistics are in the last 4 years, over 5,000 children have gotten top surgery, and several dozen have gotten bottom surgery. And for those of you that are listening, top surgery is removal of the breasts for gender dysphoria. Bottom surgery is the removal of the testicles, the penis, or removal of the vagina and revision to the opposite gender. You have to think that every surgery that this has happened, there have been psychologists, psychiatrists, endocrinologists, and surgeons coordinating on a team,
all involved
for months to carry this out. And then at the final step, there were nurses and anesthesiologists and surgeons and surgical techs and medical assistants and so forth and so on, all standing around mutilating a child. Right? In an operating theater where they're getting paid large sums of money and also being applauded to do so by the social system that surrounds them. This is evil on a level that, when evil is so blatant and brazen, that is evil on a profound level. This isn't being done in being hidden somewhere. This is being done by the most trusted and idolized people in our society, and they're being cheered on for it. I mean, I mean this. Imagine people cheering for Dahmer as he mutilated his victims and carved them up in a hospital and was paid for it, and then put on a $10,000 suit, got into his Maserati, and was applauded. It staggers the mind, the position that we're in. And it needs to end. People need to stand up. This is not, it will end when we end it. Everybody's waiting for somebody else. Everybody's waiting for the white knight to ride in. Everybody's waiting for Jesus to come down from the clouds. We have a responsibility. We as people have a responsibility to do this and to combat this in every way. And people say, I don't know how to get involved. You have to take the first step to do everything. Right? Anything in your life, you have to take the first steps. Learned helplessness is not an excuse. It is absolutely, and especially with this. This isn't some war in the Congo, or this isn't somebody being bombed in Yemen. Something that you have little to no control over what's actually happening. This is happening in your city. It's happening in your hospital where you live. It's happening to your neighbor's kid or your child. That's another thing where we're watching people allow their children to be taken by the government. People are in Colorado, I believe. I think it was Colorado. They just passed a bill that is going to that allows them to remove and press criminal charges against parents for misgendering their children. What? You're not if people don't fight this right now, that's the direction we're going. They can take your kids if you misgender them, and they can charge you with crimes against your children. They're considering it child abuse.
Wow.
If you don't gender your child correctly, it's child abuse, and they'll take your kids. And they will give your kids to someone who will gender them correctly, which is going to be some LGBTQ couple or some homosexual couple or some other couple that you disagree with. And they're going to raise your kids.
I was watching a news brief something, and they were talking about one of the states now has a new certificate when you have a child, and you can the child is transgender, the child is homo, the child is, and it's like, no, the child's a boy or a girl. That's it. I mean, I can't imagine that they have all these checkbooks that you can do and say, I'm going to pre-label my child even though they're an infant.
Wow. That
people are more concerned with being, their social status in an insane world, right? Number one, it's not good to be well adjusted in a sick society.
Seriously.
Right? It's just not. So, the people that are not, they're not willing to call out what's happening because they don't want to be called a name, or they don't want to be told that they're a bigot, or they don't want to, I don't know, lose their job, because people lose their jobs over, these things these days. I don't care what you have to do. If you're not standing against this, you are on the wrong side of things. And this is only going to get worse. If we would, just like COVID, if people would have just said, nope. I mean, I want people to think about how simple that is. If everybody just said, yeah, no, you want me to wear a mask and put a mask on my child? No. The answer is no. And if everyone that wanted to say no just did say no, it wouldn't have lasted a day. The COVID pandemic wouldn't have lasted a single day. The answer is no. We're not doing it. Thanks, but no. It's the same thing with
say, I would have to put a mask on. I can't wear a mask. Within 30 seconds, I'm nauseated. I'm ready to faint. So I was like, discriminate against me and tell me that I have to put a mask on. I'm telling you medically, I can't put a mask on. So they just discriminated against me. They were all like, no, you have to do that. Like, no, I do not.
Yeah,
absolutely. I was yelled at in my hospital on a daily basis for walking into my hospital without my mask on. And a $12 an hour security guard is going to tell me that I need to put on a mask for a medical reason. Like, no, that's not the way this is going to work.
Yeah. Well, when we saw what happened in COVID, when people did stand up, their livelihoods taken away, they were attacked, especially those doctors who were standing up and saying something. They were criminalized. I mean, it was brutal. And
I had the medical boards at my door. I was called by the police. I had my livelihood taken from me. I was slandered on every single platform known to man. I was banned off of everything on the internet. I was isolated and secluded. Every doctor was. They put doctors in psych wards. They institutionalized doctors against their will for calling out COVID. Some doctors are dead for talking out against COVID. People actually aren't aware of how bad it was. But for me, because I am one of those doctors, I feel like I can speak from a position of telling other people, you need to stand up. I went through all of those things. I don't see any, for me, from my perspective, there's no excuses.
The reason why my husband and I created the Watchman Action platform and the workbook is specifically so we, the people, can stand up and say no, and say, this is the direction of what we want our culture to go, what we want our society to look like, because we need to say, this is ridiculous. What they're trying to bring in and push on us is psychotic. I mean, no normal person can say that this is what we want to have happen with our America. And I remember, see, I'm 54. I remember 1971 when they took us off the gold standard, right? I could see how the degradation of our country was. They took away our, made in America, happy to be made in the USA. They took away all of our patriotism. And now we're talking about 54 years later, they want us to be able to mutilate children and think that it's okay. And we've got transgenders all in drag in the front of the Catholic Church or in front of the Baptist Church, doing the service and everything. And I'm thinking, wait a second, what happened to the church? Where's the church? How could they allow this kind of stuff to happen? Yeah. I mean, the Bible is our basis of our reality. That is our truth. And everything that they're spewing now is so anti-father. So when you say, you know what happened? They took God out of the center of it. Dr. Z, you are so right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I want to just throw in that this morning I was at the Fiona Jackson Pregnancy Center fundraising breakfast. And there it was Dr. Kathy Altman, who was our keynote. And her story starts with her she had an abortion herself. And she was the doctor literally doing the killing of the babies. And where father started to talk to her, started dropping seeds in her that these things are wrong, what you're doing. It was when she did an abortion on a woman. A couple of months later, the woman was back for another abortion. And then she was back for another abortion. And Kathy said to her supervisor, she says, I've done 3 abortions on this woman. I think she's using this as contraception. Yep. And she was told, well, you need to go on in there and do your job because this is what it is. And so that's how her wake up started to happen, from being this prominent doctor and, literally, and she was telling us how she would dissect it, just like, they practiced on chickens, and that's what they practiced on. And she went on and on and on about it, what she was dealing with. And so I bring it up because the doctors, like, now she's doing different work. Now she's helping. Now she's talking about it. And she's actually done legislation work. She's gone to Congress. She's testified there. So she's doing the work of repairing the damage that she has done. And her story, I mean, she's powerful in her story. But man, this is what doctors, this is what doctors are doing. Like, she realized, she said, I've killed more than, what happened in Nazi Germany. Like, I've done this. Like, I'm a killer. Like, I'm doing this. Like, it came full circle for her. And so these doctors, with the help of the Holy Spirit, I'm praying that they will too start to wake up. And she found herself in church too, because that's something she was lacking as well. And so that the church will wake up, and the people will wake up, and these doctors will wake up to what's happening here and do something about it.
I certainly hope you're right.
Yeah.
So how do we make it so that she is right? I mean, I guess we just need to continue getting the word out there and amplify your voice, for example, Dr. Z, because I mean, you're the only one that's out there saying, hey, we need to stop this insanity. Mm-hmm. You're not being motivated by money, obviously, otherwise you'd be in regular practice. It's really about, saving humanity. Right?
Yeah. I think people need to be more willing to have difficult conversations, because I think that is one of the fundamental problems where we're at. And I was raised in a generation where you don't talk about politics at the dinner table, and you don't ask somebody else about their faith, and you don't. So basically, our society was watered down in such a way that you're not allowed to have any of the important conversations. You have to stick to meaningless, useless, superfluous information with people, which for me is I can't stand small talk. So I generally just don't bother having those conversations if that's the direction of the conversation. but people need to be more willing to have the important conversations about what's going on. Two or three of the most important conversations in our world today, or at least in the United States today, is COVID, transgender, and abortion. Those are three. I mean, those are three of the, and that's not just me saying it. Those are three of the most important things that were on the ballot, right, for the last presidential election. So these are three of the most important things that are going on, and people don't want to talk about any of them. People do not want to have discussions about this, and when we don't have discussions about any of these things, that only benefits the other side. That only benefits the side of evil. That does not benefit us in any way, shape, or form. You have to push through and have these conversations, start talking to your friends and your neighbors and your loved ones, and trying to get people to see what's actually happening. Because we really are moving into, we're moving in the wrong direction. And we're moving in the wrong direction like a freight train. This isn't like we're nudging in the wrong way. Like we are moving like a freight train down the wrong tracks. And we have to halt this. We have to stop these things from happening right now. And we're living in a delusional society. You know, the lunatics are in charge of the asylum at this point in time. We have a bunch of people that don't know what. We have a bunch of people in Congress that are claiming not to know like which restroom to use, and a bunch of people to not claim to know that they don't know that men can't get pregnant, and so I mean it's just it's not even in the slightest way believable at this point. It's just we have a bunch of people that are either just that manipulative, that intellectually dishonest, or that insane. Right. And it doesn't matter which one it is. They can't be in the positions they're in.
Yeah, exactly. They should not be in the positions that they are in. And
well, I mean, think about that. One of the Congress. Sorry to interrupt, but like I can't remember the name of the Congressperson. I'm not sure, but they're trying to censure people for using the correct pronouns. Some McBride, I want to say somebody McBride, some guy who's pretending to be a woman, like you. That immediately disqualifies you for being in a position of authority.
Okay.
If you can't accept biological reality, there's no way that you belong in a position of authority. If you're one of those people that has to, put pronouns in your bio, or you need to you need to broadcast your sexual proclivities for social credit, then you don't belong in a position of authority or power. Right? You cannot be trusted. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So do you have any political aspirations in your future?
I've had people ask me, to at least think about running for positions. I have no idea about where I would run in a political apparatus, and I don't even know how that would work out. I quite despise the political apparatus, so I'm not sure. But maybe in the future.
Well, I have something to ask in reference to another tweet of yours from Twitter.
Back to the dumpster fire of my Twitter.
Yes. This was a very, very long one. And so I screenshot a couple of it, but just to get to the point of it, you said it's not challenging to understand that ending the COVID vaccine is more important than food dyes, or that ending child mutilation is more important than seed oil. It's actually pathetic that a group of media whores and politicians were hijacked to a movement of righteousness, and they're taking it away from biochemicals and biochemical war. But you see, I'm sure now you remember this tweet. Yes. So can you talk to us about that and how you're seeing the Maha movement and what they are doing, and compared to what they should be doing, what they're focusing on and what they're not focusing on, and how do we tie that into what's really important?
Yeah, so the bottom line is this. Look, we all know that seed oils are bad. We all know that microplastics and phytoestrogens and all the processed foods in our grocery stores are not good. We all know that 12-year-old children shouldn't be drinking 2 gallons of soda pop every single day, and that we do have an obesity problem. Probably around 40% of children are obese in this nation. So we all know that these are problems, and I am 100% supportive of fighting all of those issues and getting more involved and doing more. But right now, 25,000 children are being vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine every single day. It is 3 doses on the pediatric schedule starting at 6 months of age. We know that the COVID vaccine has killed millions of people around the globe. There were several hundred deaths in the first month of the rollouts in the United States of America. We've known this for years. We know how dangerous and problematic it is. We understand that the lipid nanoparticle creates thrombogenesis and is pro-inflammatory. We know that it does not target any specific cell, but instead it allows for any cell to be transfected. And that means they can go to any place in your body and cause problems. We know that the spike protein is the most toxic portion of the COVID virus, and that's what they put in this vaccine. And we know that the vaccine creates or is made out of N1 methyl pseudouridinated mRNA, which does not break down. So you produce this for an unknown amount of time. We know how dangerous this is, yet 25,000 children are still being injected with this every single day. When Trump and Kennedy got elected and appointed, respectively, the first thing on the agenda, and what a lot of people voted for, was COVID vaccines to be pulled off the market. All transgender surgeries should have made immediately criminal and illegal. These are easy things to accomplish. Especially for these people in these positions. Those are the things that should have been done. And every single day that they're not done, thousands of people are maimed and injured every single day in this country. So the Maha movement, got in, and a bunch of social media influencers that are really excited to see the limelight and really happy to have their picture taken because that they know that sugars are not good to eat all day, are now whoring themselves out to the media, and they're hijacking a movement of righteousness that is trying to actually do immense good. And that is the pattern of movement that we've seen in Maha. That they've completely hijacked the movement and they've moved it into SNAP benefits for welfare instead of a global genocide happening with COVID. They've moved it into processed food choices and instead of the mutilation of children. The situation is unacceptable. Trump and Kennedy should have already been heavily involved in these things. And I know that they have a lot on their plates, and I know that there's a lot happening right now, but these are 2 things that are of paramount importance that should have been done.
They should have been done. That's exactly. I'm very disappointed that the hot topics that you were just saying are not being addressed the way that they should be addressed. Like from day one, Trump was like, "Oh, I got us out of the WHO." Yeah, got you out of the, and then he was like, "But then I gave the money to Gavi," and I'm like, "So you gave it to Bill Gates directly instead of giving it to the WHO, which basically is Bill Gates anyway, because he funds most of that." It's like I want to go. What are you guys really doing? Like, are you getting us all excited because we're taking fluoride out of the water and we're having some small wins, but we're still not addressing the transhumanism issue? We're not addressing the COVID issue. Like, we're not addressing what's really happening.
The opposition will always say trust the process and 5D chess, and then if it's really crazy, it's 10D chess, and if it's really really crazy, it's 15D chess, or something insane like this. No, the people crave honesty, integrity, and truth. That is what people want to hear right now. People are sick and tired of hearing the same old tired tropes that we've been hearing for years. All that seems to be changing right now is it seems like, and we could go into the politics of all this, but no one's been arrested. Right. Doge is showing like trillions of dollars worth of fraud. I don't see any arrests. I'm not concerned with I don't care about how many trillions of dollars of fraud there. I am concerned with the people who committed the fraud being thrown in jail. The people that opened our borders for 4 years being tried for treason. The people who locked individuals down and mandated that their loved ones die alone in hospitals be tried and charged. Right. I'm not concerned with with the witch hunts and hearing about a bunch of non-starters. I want to see results, just like the rest of the American people, and that's what we voted for. And again, we're not seeing those results. And I think that once again, I think that there is room for patience, but I do believe that for most of us, our patience is running extremely thin.
Thin, very, very, very thin. Can you speak to I heard something about they want to do an mRNA cancer vaccine. Do you know about that?
Yeah, I think that the mRNA platform is going to go everywhere. I know that Pfizer already, bought into the cancer space. Shocking, right? One thing I'll say is never think that any of these people are stupid. They already knew all of the outcomes. They already knew, like, as I said, the lipid nanoparticle was known to be toxic. The spike protein was known to be toxic. The mRNA was known not to degrade. They knew all these things before they injected you. They knew what most of these things were going to cause and what they were going to do. So it's not shocking that they're in front of this on the cancer front and they're already looking into treatment methodologies. The mRNA platform is what they want to shift to, I think, across the board. For vaccines, for infectious disease treatment, for the treatment of autoimmune, for all of these things, because it would allow them to, quote unquote, individualize the treatment to you based on your genetic profile. I think this is deeply foolish. I think that this is deeply arrogant and will only cause more problems. But for their financial incentives, I would imagine it's quite beneficial.
Quite beneficial.
So I think that, yes, that's the direction that they're going to try and move. I think that they're going to have a very difficult time getting any traction with that, given the loss of trust that individuals have in the healthcare system. I mean, I personally think that the entire allopathic model of medicine needs to be burned down to the ground. So that's my position. That position used to be very, very controversial several years ago, but it has grown to be less and less controversial. But no matter where you look in our medical apparatus, you're going to see fraud. You look at vaccines, all they do is cause illness, and they're based on completely fraudulent data and fraudulent research. If you look at statins, same thing. Anti-psych meds like SSRIs, same thing. So it's, we have 95 million patients on statins. We have 47 million patients on SSRIs. We have 30 million on benzos. We have 4 million on mood stabilizers. Out of 330 million people in the United States, 350 million, depending on where you look at census data. So look, those drugs are all fraudulent. Those are all known to cause immense harm. And I could walk through all the biochemical, immunological, pharmacological processes on all of these things. It's all fraud. It's all fraud and it's all damaging. So I think people are waking up to all of these things that, this all needs to be burned down. And why doctors have been, operating in this space for 30 years. Again, a lot of the things I say are wildly controversial. And the reason they're controversial is because people they don't like looking in the mirror. They don't like getting called out for these things. I'm sorry, if you've been practicing medicine for 30 years and you didn't notice any of these things, once again, it's not like they slipped in fraudulent things. The largest things are fraudulent. The statins, the SSRIs, the vaccines. If you've been practicing medicine for 30 years and you didn't notice any of this, then you're not a very good doctor, are you?
Right.
So unfortunately, I see the entire system as a cancerous parasite on our public. So I think the whole thing needs to be burned down.
So, Dr. Z, as we start landing the plane, if there's a last word that you want to give our audience, I would really appreciate that.
People, every time I come onto a show, they ask for last words. We've talked about a lot of things. I think that, I hope that people will educate themselves as much as possible. All the information's out there. Again, learned helplessness, not an excuse. That all the information is out there. Dig, do your own research, read. You don't need to be a doctor or a scientist. You don't need to be you don't need degrees to be able to read and kind of understand what's going on. Educate yourselves as much as possible because it's in your benefit. It's in your benefit to be your own advocate. It is in your own benefit to understand, how to navigate your health and what's going on in our society. Because you don't want to be. World War III started in 2019, and again, I can defend that position pretty well. World War III started in 2019. You've already slept through most of the war. Don't sleep through the rest of the war. You don't want to wake up and realize that a war happened. You weren't even around for it.
Wow.
Wow, Dr. Z, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on today.
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. All right, we're going to say thank you very much, Dr. Z, and let you go. And we're going to close this show after you leave. Dr. Z, have a beautiful and blessed day. Thank you for sharing all of your
so
time
much
with us.
for
It's my
your
pleasure, guys. God
insight
bless.
and your knowledge.
Yeah.
It was welcoming, and because you have so much information, and we really appreciate you and everything that you said today. So thank
You're
you.
very welcome.
Awesome.
God bless, guys.
Have a blessed day. Wow, holy whoa.
Wow.
I don't know about you, but that was a whole lot of wonderful information, huh?
Yeah, especially about the COVID stuff and the things that's happening with the mutilation of our children,
Mm-hmm.
and the numbers, how they're growing. I mean, every day. I mean, it's like they're drinking something from a faucet. Like, all of these kids, they're drinking this thing up, and it's more of them that are sprouting up with this disease, this mental disease. And so for him to break all of this down to talk to us about that, I mean, it's eye-opening. It's eye-opening.
He was the only doctor that stood up. He's the only one that sued. Out of 1.1 million doctors, he's the only one that's standing up going, can we defend the children?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean,
this is wrong.
How are they not standing up? And they're complicit in what's happening here.
Yeah.
Listen, we, the church, we have to stand up and we have to say, this is our culture. This is what we want to see happen. Because if we leave it up to these industries, forget about it.
Yeah. I mean, again, these industries are all in it again
Money.
For the ultimate dollar, to make money. They will produce, the big pharma will produce these chemicals, stick it in your body, kill you. It don't matter as long as they make money. They will put you on puberty blockers. Children 12 years old, 10 years old, they'll put you on puberty blockers. When your body is just developing, just trying to make its way, they will stick you on these puberty blockers, where your body is literally fighting with itself. The natural in you is fighting with the chemicals that they're putting in you. And it's crazy. Why? And so they can keep you on these drugs forever, and then you cut off your parts and keep you on drugs forever. And that's it.
Dr. Z talks about, like, the elderly are starting to die off, so they needed a new industry to be able to, new segment of people. So now they're targeting the children because, once they're starting the puberty blockers and whatnot, that's a lifelong thing.
It's lifelong.
They're customers forever. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. And when you think about it, when you think about the things that, the natural diseases, the natural things, the stuff that comes from the food and everything else, on top of the puberty blockers and all of these things that they're doing to their bodies. Like, it's madness. We're literally in a health crisis at every single angle. Why put more on top of it unnecessarily? Because they've put in your brain that, hey, you might be a boy or a girl, and they feed off of that because children are confused at that age, and they put all this stuff into you. Oh, I must be a boy. Now I got to go get puberty blockers. I got to cut off my breasts. I got to do this. And it's a money grab at every angle.
If this was happening back in the early 80s, when I was young, let's say 10, 11, 12 years old, forget about it. I don't know what would have happened to me. I was a total tomboy. Like, I hung out with all the boys on the block. We played football, manhunt, wiffle ball, all that fun stuff. Like, I hung out with the boys. They would have targeted me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They would have. How many of these children are being targeted? It's like, no. That's what I keep saying. My hashtag is women stand up. Women have to stand up. They have come after the family. Now they're really after the children. It's very clear.
It's clear.
It's clear. RC and I have been writing about the transgender initiative, the one world government, the one world religion. We've been talking about these things for the last 2 years and going, church, the body of Christ, do not see the enemy and what he's doing and how he's sneaking in. Okay. They're sexualizing our children. We're looking at little boys going to drag queen thingamajiggies and they're dancing and stuff like that. And it's like, that's against the law. Like, I can't believe that they're allowing this to happen.
And their parents because when we talk about the children, where's the parent? The parents are in the audience cheering it on, taking video. Oh, there's little Susie, with the drag queen. Like, this is insanity. The parents are complicit. The parents are the ones that needs to be locked up and put in jail, because it is child abuse. It actually is, because you've been given this child to guide, to protect, to watch. Right? That's what the job of the parents is. But you're busy, taking your children to some witch doctor, some Frankenstein doctor to chop off their body parts. You're busy taking your child to drag shows so they can see men in dresses. It's insanity. So the parents, in my point of view, we need to hold their feet to the fire. We need to stop locking them up.
So my eldest two kids are 36 and 33. The difference between what they went through when they were in school versus my daughter, who's now 25, and what she went through. She's the one who came home with the little girl that was like, I'm non-binary. And I'm like, what the hell is that?
Right.
But that kind of stuff wasn't happening 10 years prior with my older kids. It was just amazing to see the shift and what was going on in the educational system and how they infiltrated. This is all crimes against humanity. The stuff that they got spraying in the air, they're like, oh, there's 12 new kinds of clouds. Like, all of a sudden, father was like, hey, I'm going to make new clouds. To the fact that they are injecting stuff into the chickens and into the beef, like to the fact that we've got GMOs and they're feeding us things that's not even close to being, but they want us to eat bugs. And it's like, come on already. Like, stop already.
It's the genocide of we the people. That's what they're trying to kill us all. And they have so many different arenas to do that. The clouds, the food, vaccines, pills, all of the stuff. And what else?
Dentistry.
The water.
The water.
I mean, everything is geared up to kill us.
Well, I just want to say, Miss Amania, I love your enthusiasm over all of this, and we need to have that become just so infectious that other people, pick up on that and, carry that, because we need to be enthusiastic about the fact that this is our country. These are our kids, and we're in charge, not them.
Not them. And we need to stand up and fight. We can't be complicit. That is one of the reasons Julianna and I have come together to speak on these issues. And that's another reason why I put on these community conversations, so we can talk about some of these things that we are seeing, because some of these issues that we have, they can go away. Like I was telling you, I was at the abortion pregnancy fundraiser this morning, and and I understand, yes. But guess what? We don't just swallow the baby, right? Like, this action that brings that on, and so getting to the cause of those things prior to the pregnancy happening and then the abortion come into play is in my thoughts and my opinion is that's where the fix is.
Right.
It's not. And, I did an interview with John Mishner a couple of weeks ago, and it's on the Conservative Poet channel, by the way, if you'd like to take a look at that. He is the person who wrote the book on overcoming the pro-life movement. Is that how it's titled? Overcoming, in the pro-life movement. And his whole thing is that we put it at the feet of the government. We put it at the feet of the governor. Because the governor can say today, I'm making abortion illegal. Therefore, we're going to lock everybody up who goes and do it. And this morning, I spoke to Dr. Kathy at the event. And I said to her, I interviewed him recently, and this is his stance. And she says, I disagree, because I think it's a moral thing. And that's where we need to fight. That's where the change has to come. It has to come within the moral stems of we the people, we the society, and therefore we need God to fix and change these hearts. So abortion is that issue. If we were following the word, if we were marriage before sex, if we were in these spaces, if we were there, then abortion wouldn't really be an issue. So if we have the conversations, if we're talking to girls about preserving our bodies, if we're talking to them, if we're having those conversations and saying, yeah, maybe, that's not the right way to go. You don't want to end up down the road a single mama. You don't want to end up down the road in these predicaments. You want to have a husband. You want to have a marriage. You want to have this. This is what you want. And so the church and everybody else, we would be able to stop the abortion pandemic as it is if we talked and were presented with other options, and if we made the dignity of women, the dignity of girl, and who we are. We wouldn't be letting. And I understand rape happens, and I understand incest. I know these things happen, but the majority, the 99% of that, is not coming from those things. It's about we the women.
If we would go back to the Bible, right? Father made sex so that it's like a contract, right? You don't want to be having sex with a whole bunch of people, but we've taken the Bible away from how we raise the children. If the children really understood the importance of why Father said to be married and then procreate, there's a reason why we're not supposed to have sex before marriage. It's more than just about not getting pregnant out of wedlock. It really is about having that abstinence and being with that one person and having that covenant between, a man and a woman coming together for the first time as husband and wife and having children under that beautiful covenant and protecting the children. So father's protecting the husband's protecting the wife, and the wife, all of that protects the children. But we lost that. We no longer have that. But if we would go back to the simple basics of the Bible,
abortion would not be
a thing. Yeah, it wouldn't be an issue at all.
All right. I wanted to jump out of my skin and say that.
Listen, when I'm called a racist because I said that there are more Black babies that are aborted in New York City than are born, we have a problem. They're talking about how we're not producing enough people to be able to sustain the culture and whatnot. Of course, because you've been killing us off. So it's not just the, millions of babies that were aborted. It's all the children they would have had and all the children that those children would have had. It's right.
The line. We are literally killing the seed, the line, the generation of,
us.
Of us. And so I actually said this morning to somebody, 13% of the population, that is who we as Black people are as a whole in this world, in this country, 13% of the population. Why is that? We have been stagnant here for decades. We are not growing. Why? It's because we are killing our own. We're killing our babies. We're killing the next generation of the line of our families.
Black on Black crime.
And then that's what it is. I mean, we going into the gun violence is a whole nother thing. But this particular part of it, that's what it is. It's a genocide. And Dr. Z said it. The worst place for a baby to be is in the womb of the mama. That is the most dangerous place for a baby to be.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
That's just crazy.
Absolute madness. But this is the world that we're in. And again, we can create beautiful babies. We can create a beautiful family. And so I started on this rant from talking about the Liberty Hall's conversations. And so we had a great conversation with wives over the weekend with this lovely wife was one of the panelists. And I thank you again, Julianna, for taking that and doing that with me. So, and we had some beautiful ladies on the panels talking about wife and talking about, the experiences, and the women, the single ones in the room was really, they got a lot out of it. And again, it talks to you about, okay, I think they've got something, I'd love to do that. Rather than, becoming a baby mama. No,
No.
no, it's a beautiful thing. And here I am a baby mama. I am this person. I am. And again, not throwing rocks at anybody. But now I've grown and I understand these things. We're gonna make mistakes. Nobody's saying we're not gonna make mistakes. I've made them.
We all made
And
them.
that's why I'm here now trying to say to young girls, you have the ability to take a different option. You have the ability to take a different avenue.
Yep.
You know, to create the beautiful unity that God really wants for us as his daughters, you know?
As his daughters. That's the most important point right there. But you know, the younger generation, they're more like our grandparents. They're very conservative. You know, the girls, they want to be stay-at-home moms, right? The boys, they want to be able to get married and be able to, you know, take care of the household and send their kids to college on his salary alone.
Yeah.
It's up to us, our generation, the Generation Xers, to be able to say, we need to smoothly hand over what needs to happen with our culture to the younger generation and empower the conservative generation. Have you heard of Girls Gone Bible?
No.
They have over 1 million followers. It's just all these girls that are doing Bible study together.
Really?
Yeah. You know, so like we need to really target and speak to the younger generation. That's the reason why RC and I were over at Victory Christian Academy last week, talking to them about parallel economies and about gold back and being able to have alternative currencies, not just the fiat currency, but what does it mean to have gold? You know, it's important for us, the Generation Xers, to sit down with the younger generation and say, this is yours now.
Yeah.
What do you want to make of it so that we can help and empower you to have the culture that it is that you want to be able to have?
Yeah.
That's our job.
Yeah.
So
and it's great. And again, it's educating our people.
Yep.
So that brings me to our next Liberty Halls, which is going to be in June. And we are pulling in Gen Zers to have a conversation.
Good.
And I'm really, really excited for it.
Uh-huh.
And still in the planning, you know, we just got over one. So, but this is going to be the next one. I was looking at the calendar this morning. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to have that call. And we're going to talk to Gen Zers, young people, about what they're seeing, what's happening in their world. And the following that, the one that's going to be after that one, we're going to talk financial literacy. We're going to talk money. We're going to talk go back. We're going to talk about these things to get ourselves free from the matrix, if you will. And like this week, we had the highest in the stock market, right? This week, money happened this week, right?
Gold went up tremendously.
And some people don't have a clue about any of that. We need to talk about that.
That's right.
So we can start positioning ourselves, so we can start to get ourselves financial freedom in this aspect. So yes, we're going to have a Liberty Halls on financial Gen Zers, and then the next one will be about that. So thinking about all the people, you know, that I want to participate in that, and really bring a robust conversation in reference to, you know, empowering ourselves and freedom in our finances. I mean, it's a real thing, friends.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
RC and I are excited because we're taking the Watchman Action Workbook and we're Schoolhouse rocking it so that we can work with the Gen Zers and the younger guys and saying, you know what, this is your world. We're going to help you with this roadmap to be able to design what it is that you want to see happen and how to get that done. So we're really excited about the younger generation. Huh? It's really about them.
Yeah.
So
and they have a great opportunity. Young people right now, they're living in an era where, you know, they can become millionaires like that. They're living in an era they can do their businesses like that, where before, you know, it was a struggle trying to piece these things together. We're living in a different era, and young people, they don't have to be broke at 60. They don't have to be broke at 70.
That's right.
They can be millionaires at 20.
That's right.
Right? Because we have these tools now, and and we know that the school is not educating them on these things. They're not teaching them economics. They're not teaching them anything. We know that they're teaching them all about the LGBT though, and all this craziness, but they're not teaching them how to, you know, become independent and really give more into the society. because we're going to leave them with this world. They're going to be the ones running for office one day. They're going to be the ones being president one day. They're going to be the ones in our Congress. And so we need to start educating them on all things so that they are not, we don't have wokeness, in this way.
That's right.
So.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah.
What a segment. All right. Let's land the plane. We've been here for
Land
almost an hour and a half just
right.
having major conversations. Amania, I really appreciate you.
I
And I love you.
Love
My
you,
sister.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So I'm Julianna Ormond with Watchman Action. You can find us at watchmanaction.org. We love you guys. You want to close out?
Yep. And I'm Amania Salas. I am the Conservative Poet on YouTube. Go and check out the channel and subscribe, like. I would really appreciate that. And you can also support by going to the Orlando Patriot, where you can find my merch, mugs, t-shirts, things like that. That really does help out, especially with the work that we do on the ground, not just in YouTube world, but the work that we're doing on the ground, like creating the Liberty Halls and bringing those live conversations. So all of that helps. It helps us out. So I thank you very much. And also what really, really helps is pressing like and commenting and sending this off so that YouTube won't suppress this work and so that they can hear what Dr. Z had to say. And so, because that is a real challenge. They don't want this thing out. So share it with friends. We really appreciate that. Share this conversation with friends because it's really, something, because YouTube is not going to push it out there. We need your help to push it out. We got 6 people in there. All 6 of you, send it to 1,000 people.
All right. Well, we love you guys. We're signing out, and we will see you next
Friday. God bless and keep you. Happy weekend.
Yes.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
There we go. Bye.